My girlfriend broke up with me about a month ago, and ever since that moment my entire world has felt off balance. Even though people say a month isn't a long time, it feels like an eternity when your days suddenly lose the person who used to be at the center of them. Everything changed overnight. The routines, the texts, the inside jokes, the comfort of knowing someone was always there, it all disappeared, leaving behind a silence that feels heavier than noise ever could. When the breakup first happened, I decided to handle it in what I believed was the most mature and effective way. I committed to a 30-day no-contact period. At the time, my intentions were mixed, even if I didn't want to admit it to myself. Part of me genuinely wanted space to heal, to regain my sense of self, and to calm the emotional storm inside me. But another part of me, probably the louder one, was holding on to the hope that she would miss me. I hoped that silence would make her reflect on what we had, remember the good times, and eventually realize that breaking up was a mistake. I read countless posts online about no contact. People talked about how distance can create clarity, how absence can reignite attraction, and how stepping away can sometimes bring someone back. I clung to those stories maybe more than I should have. They gave me something to believe in when everything else felt uncertain. I told myself that if I just stayed strong and didn't reach out, something might change. For the first couple of weeks, no contact actually seemed to help. The pain was still there, but it wasn't as sharp. I started to feel moments of calm between the waves of sadness. I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes anymore. I wasn't replaying every conversation in my head as obsessively. It felt like I was slowly starting to heal, or at least learning how to breathe again. Then she removed me from Instagram. That moment hit harder than I expected. It might sound small or insignificant to some people, but for me, it felt symbolic, like a door quietly closing. Social media was the last thread connecting us, the last place where I could still feel like I existed in her world somehow. When that disappeared, it felt final in a way that the breakup itself hadn't fully felt yet. After 22 days of no contact, I messaged her. I told myself I just needed clarity, that I deserved to know where we stood. Deep down, though, I think I was hoping for reassurance. I wanted to hear something, anything that suggested there was still a chance. What she said crushed me. She told me that I needed to move on and that there was no way of making the relationship work. There was no anger in her words, no emotion, just certainty. That certainty hurt more than if she had been upset or conflicted. It felt like she had already crossed a bridge that I was still standing miles away from. Before that message, I felt like I was slowly piecing myself back together. After it, everything fell apart again. It was like being dumped all over again, but this time with no room for hope. The finality of her words echoed in my head for days. I kept replaying them, wondering how someone who once loved me could sound so sure that we were done forever. Despite the pain, I tried not to let myself spiral. I told myself that if she had truly moved on, then I needed to do the same. I didn't want to be stuck in the past while life kept moving forward without me. So I made a decision. I would put myself out there. I would meet new people. I would try to open my heart again, even if it felt uncomfortable and forced at first. I started talking to new girls and eventually went on dates with 3 different people. On the surface, everything seemed fine. The conversations flowed. The girls were kind, interesting, and genuinely attractive in their own ways. If this had happened before my breakup, I probably would have been excited. But instead, something felt wrong. Every date felt like a reminder of what I had lost. No matter who I was sitting across from, my mind kept drifting back to my ex. I compared everything, the way they laughed, the way they spoke, their sense of humor, their energy. Even small things like how they reacted to certain topics triggered comparisons. And every time my ex seemed to win in my mind. It wasn't just about physical attraction, although she was undeniably beautiful. It was her personality that felt irreplaceable. The way she made me feel understood. The way conversations with her felt effortless. The way being around her felt like home. No matter how attractive or interesting these new girls were, they didn't make me feel the same spark, the same depth of connection. I started to wonder if my ex had permanently ruined my standards. It sounds dramatic, but that's genuinely how it feels. Being with her raised the bar so high that everyone else feels like a downgrade in comparison. It's not fair to the women I'm meeting, and I know that. They deserve to be seen for who they are, not measured against someone from my past. But I can't seem to stop myself from doing it. In my head, I keep thinking that the only way I'll ever truly move on is if I find someone better than my ex. Someone who is just as attractive, if not more. And who also has an amazing personality, someone who makes me feel excited again. Someone who makes me forget her. But that feels incredibly difficult, almost impossible. Finding someone who checks both boxes feels rare, and it makes me question whether I just got lucky once and will never experience that again. This mindset scares me. It makes dating feel exhausting instead of exciting. Instead of looking forward to new connections, I go into dates already skeptical, already prepared to be disappointed. I keep downloading dating apps, swiping, chatting, setting up dates, hoping that eventually something will click. And every time it doesn't, it reinforces the fear that she was the one and that I lost my chance. What makes it even harder is knowing that she has likely moved on emotionally, if not already with someone else. The thought of her being happy without me, laughing with someone new, creating new memories, it hurts in a way that's hard to describe. It feels like being replaced, like everything we shared meant less to her than it did to me. I also find myself questioning my own worth. If she could walk away so easily, what does that say about me? Was I not enough? Was there something fundamentally lacking that made her decide there was no way to make it work? These questions creep into my mind late at night, when distractions fade and I'm left alone with my thoughts. Some days are better than others. There are moments when I feel hopeful, when I believe that time will eventually dull the pain and change my perspective. But then there are days when the sadness hits me out of nowhere. A song, a memory, a random thought can send me spiraling back into longing and regret. I try to remind myself that it's only been a month. that healing isn't linear, that it's normal to still be attached to someone you loved deeply. But knowing that logically doesn't always make it easier emotionally. My heart hasn't caught up to my head yet. The hardest part is letting go of the idea of her, not just the person she was, but the future I imagined with her. The plans, the what-ifs, the version of my life that included her. Losing that feels like grieving something that never fully existed but felt so real at the time. That's why I'm asking this question now, not just out of curiosity, but out of desperation for hope. Have any of you been in a situation where you genuinely believed you would never find someone better than your ex? Where you felt like no one else could compare, and the idea of loving someone new felt impossible? And if so, did that belief eventually change? Did time really make a difference? Did you eventually meet someone who made you realize that your ex wasn't the peak of what love could be, but just one chapter of it? Someone who didn't just replace them, but offered something different, maybe even better in ways you couldn't see at the time? Right now, it feels hard to imagine a future where I don't compare everyone to her. It feels hard to believe that I'll ever stop missing her or wondering, what if? But I don't want to live my life stuck in the past, chasing a memory of someone who has already chosen to walk away. I want to believe that there is still hope for my love life. That this heartbreak isn't the end of my story, but the beginning of a new one I just can't see yet. I want to believe that one day I'll look back at this version of myself with compassion and realize that I survived something that felt unbearable at the time. For now, all I can do is keep moving forward, even if it's slow, even if it hurts. And I'm hoping that by sharing this, someone who has been through something similar can remind me that this pain isn't permanent, and that love doesn't end with one person, even when it feels like it does. Hey guys, I never thought I'd be the kind of person writing something like this, but here I am. I guess I'm doing it for the same reason many people do, because my head feels too full. My chest feels too heavy, and I don't really know where else to put all of this. If nobody reads this, that's okay. Just writing it out already feels like I'm taking one small breath after weeks of suffocating. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and in January 2021, I met a girl through a dating app. She was 23. From the very first conversation, there was something different about her. Not in a dramatic movie-like way, but in a quiet, grounding way. Talking to her felt easy, natural. Like I didn't have to perform or impress. I could just be. We decided to meet up pretty quickly. She came over to my place, and I remember feeling unusually nervous beforehand. I had dated before. I'd had flings. I'd had casual hookups. But this felt different even before she arrived. When she walked in, it didn't feel awkward at all. We talked, laughed, drank a bit, and just enjoyed being around each other. That same evening, we ended up kissing. There was no dramatic declaration of feelings. No talk of love. But there was warmth, comfort, interest, and something that made me want her to stay instead of finding an excuse for her to leave, which for me was new. That might sound small, but it wasn't. You should know that this was my first real girlfriend. Growing up, affection was not something that came easily or consistently in my life. My parents divorced when I was young. My mom had her own struggles and priorities, and my stepdad was abusive. Physical affection, emotional safety, being held or reassured, those were not things I grew up with. Somewhere along the way, I learned to keep people at a distance. I learned how to enjoy connection without fully letting it touch me. So yes, I had dated before. I'd slept with women. I'd had situationships and flings, but I always kept one foot out the door. I'd find reasons not to get attached. Reasons they weren't right. Reasons to push them away after sex once things got too close. But with her, I didn't want that. I wanted her to stay. I wanted her presence in my space. And that scared me, but it also felt right. We kept seeing each other throughout January and February. It became obvious pretty quickly that we were both really into each other. She was affectionate, expressive, enthusiastic. She made it very clear how much she liked me. At the end of February, I asked her if she wanted to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. What followed were probably the best months of my life. For the first time, I felt chosen, wanted, loved in a way I had never experienced before. At first, I had some doubts, mostly about myself. She was more expressive than I was, more clingy, more emotionally open. Sometimes it felt suffocating, and I worried whether I was capable of giving her what she needed. But over time, those doubts faded. Slowly, I fell deeper and deeper in love with her. The more time we spent together, the more natural it felt. Those first 4 months were genuinely beautiful. We laughed constantly. We supported each other. We felt aligned. We loved each other equally. She often told me how crazy she was about me, how special I was to her. We talked about the future in a way that didn't feel forced or unrealistic. Talking about kids wasn't taboo. Imagining a life together felt exciting, not scary. And the physical side of our relationship was amazing. She would text me about how much she wanted me, how badly she craved me. For someone who had grown up starved of affection, that validation was intoxicating. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was opening parts of myself that had been closed my entire life. Eventually, we booked a vacation together to Portugal. It felt like a milestone, a confirmation that this wasn't just something casual. Looking back now, this is where things quietly began to shift for her, although I had no idea at the time. The vacation itself was great. No fights, no tension. We relaxed, went to the beach, did activities, explored, ate well, and enjoyed each other's company. To me, it felt close to perfect. I came back from that trip more certain than ever that this was the woman I wanted to be with long term. For the first time in my life, I felt something close to certainty about another person. But for her, something had changed. After the vacation, she later told me she had started having doubts during that time. She felt I was too passive, not adventurous enough, not proactive enough when it came to planning activities. That criticism completely blindsided me. because during the trip itself, she never expressed dissatisfaction. Not once. If anything, she seemed happy. And this is where the disconnect really started. After the vacation, I noticed something subtle but unmistakable. When she went home, I didn't want her to leave. I wanted more time, more closeness. For her, it seemed nice to have some space again. That following week, we saw each other twice. And that's when the imbalance became impossible to ignore. I was initiating all the affection, the kissing, the hugging, the intimacy. I was the one reaching for her. She didn't pull away aggressively, but she didn't lean in either. When I tried to initiate sex, she rejected it. Once. Then again. That rejection hit something deep inside me, old wounds, old fears. Feelings of not being enough, of being unwanted. Instead of handling that insecurity calmly, I reacted emotionally. I became distant and moody, left the room, and shut down. That understandably upset her, and she ended up leaving. Almost immediately after, I felt ashamed of how I had acted. I texted her, apologized, and asked what was going on. That's when she told me she wasn't feeling well physically, that she had stomach cramps. But eventually, the deeper criticism came out. The same one about me being too passive. I tried to respond maturely. I told her I didn't see that difference as a problem, but as a balance. She often complained about having too many activities planned, about feeling overwhelmed. I thought my calmer nature could complement her energy. I told her that since meeting her, I had already started coming out of my shell more, that I was growing, that she could expect more initiative from me. I genuinely believed that relationships were about growing together, not abandoning each other at the first sign of imperfection. That weekend, she made plans without me. COVID restrictions had just been lifted, and suddenly the world felt open again. One night, she went to a party not far from my place. I asked if she wanted to stay the night with me afterward. She said no. That crushed me. In my head, I thought, if she really loved me, wouldn't she want to? Later, I found out she went with a friend and planned to go home together, which logically made sense. But emotionally, I was already spiraling. She replied slower than usual. I felt myself unraveling. I told her how vulnerable this relationship made me feel. How much it hurt that she wasn't responding while I was struggling so badly. I didn't sleep that night. She had a wild night out. At around 5 in the morning, she finally asked if I wanted to call. We did. We talked about everything. She suggested I come over to her place since she was heading home anyway. I agreed immediately. Not because it was the right choice, but because I was terrified of losing her. I just wanted to hold her. I wanted reassurance. I wanted things to feel okay again. But when I got there, the distance was still there. The lack of reciprocity. The absence of warmth. The next morning, I confronted her again, and again she repeated the same criticism. Finally, I asked the question I had been avoiding. Do you even like me anymore? That's when everything collapsed. She couldn't say yes. We talked, and it became clear that she didn't want to continue the relationship. I was completely shocked. I felt numb, detached, like my body shut down to protect itself. I didn't even cry in that moment. I just left. As soon as I got home, she texted me asking if I was okay. I told her I wasn't. I told her I needed space to get her out of my head. She agreed not to contact me. Now I'm here. And I'm struggling more than I ever have before. It feels like the ground was pulled out from under me. For months, she told me how deeply she loved me, how crazy she was about me. That lifted me higher than I had ever been in my life. I gave her everything I had, all the love I had never been able to give anyone before. And then, in the span of a week and a half, it was gone. I can't fully accept that being too passive is the real reason. It feels too small, too fixable. I believe that when she started doubting, I responded by leaning in harder, being more affectionate, more available, more complimentary. And instead of reassuring her, it pushed her further away. I think I made her feel like she could do better. Like I was desperate. And combined with the world opening up again, with her being young, social, and full of options, I became someone she outgrew in her mind. I know I should accept that it's over. I know no contact is the right thing to do. But I'm not sure I'm strong enough to ignore her if she reaches out. It feels impossible that someone can go from loving you deeply to pulling away so fast. Writing this doesn't fix anything, but it helps me breathe. Even just a little, thank you for reading.
Visas for the dumpers. Please be kinder. Please be less selfish. Like many people after a breakup, my Google search history has been completely taken over by one single word, X. It doesn't even feel like a word anymore, but a state of mind. A place where confusion, hope, pain, nostalgia, and disbelief all collide. I spent countless nights reading stories here. Some of them bring a small sense of relief. Some of them hurt even more. But almost all of them make me feel less alone. After weeks of silently reading, I finally decided to create an account and share my own story. Not because I think it's unique, but because I desperately needed to get it out of my head, and because I want dumpers to read this. Although, to be honest, I doubt many of them ever come here. Like millions of others, I went through a breakup about a month ago with my partner of almost 4 years. We weren't just dating. We were living together and had built a small world side by side over that time. We shared a home, routines, memories, plans, and a sense of stability that quietly becomes your identity, without you even noticing. Yes, Post is not about what led to the breakup or who was right or wrong during the relationship. It's specifically about what happens after. The part that no one prepares you for. The part that can hurt even more than the breakup itself. Before my partner officially broke up with me, I had already noticed changes. He became colder, less communicative, emotionally distant, and avoidant in ways that were impossible to ignore. Conversations felt shorter and heavier. Affection faded. Something was clearly wrong. I asked him multiple times what was going on, and every time he blamed stress. Work stress, school stress, life stress. And because I loved him, I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to believe him. Eventually, during one final confrontation, he admitted that he wanted to break up and that things needed to change between us. So, he told me he had been waiting for the end of his semester so it would be a better time, with less pressure from school. That sentence still echoes in my head. What surprised me the most is that deep down, I had wanted the breakup too. Not because I didn't care, but because something between us had clearly shifted. The difference was that my life wasn't ready for it, and my heart definitely wasn't. Loved him platonically, deeply, and loyally, and I didn't have the courage to initiate the breakup myself. When he finally said it out loud, I tried to slow things down. I suggested therapy. I suggested trying again. Not out of desperation or ego, but because we still loved each other, and I believed it deserved at least one real attempt. He shut the idea down immediately. He said he didn't want to give me hope. That was the moment I realized he had already emotionally left long before the breakup conversation happened. After that, I asked for space. I asked him to move out, or at least give me physical distance, because that was what I truly needed to survive. His response was vague. He said he would see what he could do. Days passed. I cried constantly around the house. I shook. I barely slept. I felt lost, confused, and completely destabilized. Meanwhile, my ex seemed happier than I had ever seen him throughout our entire relationship. He sang loudly in the shower. He played cheerful music. He laughed. He moved through the apartment like someone who had just been freed, while I was falling apart right next to him. It felt surreal, like we were living in two different realities under the same roof. One day, everything collapsed. I overheard him talking on the phone in his mother tongue, a language I understand well enough. The conversation didn't sound like it was with family or friends. It was intimate, soft, excited. Suddenly, all the happiness made sense. There was someone else. I confronted him again. I had already asked him before if there was someone new, and he had denied it. This time, after that phone call, I made him sit down and tell me the truth. He admitted it. He thought I had checked his phone, which I hadn't. That detail didn't even matter anymore. What hurt wasn't just that there was someone else. It was how it happened. I later figured out, on my own, that they had started talking weeks before the official breakup. Friends already knew about the new person. People were commenting sweet things. Plans were being made, not vague ideas, but concrete plans. Holidays, spa weekends, flights booked, hotels reserved. Traveling to the same places we had gone together, almost on the exact same dates, just 1 year later. It felt like my life wasn't ending, but being replaced. What destroyed me even more was the insensitivity. He wore the coat I had brought him from my country, a deeply personal gift. He wore the jewelry I had chosen for him with love. He wore them while smiling in cute couple photos with someone else. As if I had never existed. As if those memories had no meaning at all. Malai, I am almost certain that he even brought the new person into our apartment when I wasn't there. The thought of another lover sitting on our couch, sleeping in our bed, existing in a space that screamed us, is something I can't put into words. Not because I think I'm morally superior, but because I simply couldn't do that. That apartment wasn't just a place to me. It was our shared history. We talk many times after the breakup. Long, painful conversations that drained whatever strength I had left. Eventually, he admitted it. He admitted he had been selfish. He admitted he hid things because it wasn't the right time for him. He admitted he could have moved temporarily to a friend's place, but didn't because it would have endangered his studies. In that moment, I realized I wasn't worth a few quizzes or school projects. I wasn't worth inconvenience. He agreed that he had been selfish. So this is my message to dumpers. Yes, you have the right to break up. Yes, you have the right to move on immediately. Yes, it is your life. But if your ex was kind, if they loved you, if they shared a life with you, please be mindful of how you leave. The breakup itself is not the only ending. The way you handle the aftermath becomes the final chapter in someone else's story. Give them space. Leave them alone. Move out. Be discreet. Be understanding. Especially if you are already riding the dopamine rush of someone new. Do not be unkind. Not because you broke up, but because you emotionally erased someone after. That kind of pain lasts far longer than the relationship itself.